2016 marks the 30th year of the City of Orlando Mayor's Martin Luther King Jr. Commission. The commission brings together corporate and community partners to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. King. Dr. King, of course, was one of the central figures in the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s that helped move our country forward toward greater opportunity for all citizens. Join us as Florida Senator Geraldine Thompson and other Central Floridians discuss the work of the Commission and the importance of remembering that in America, freedom is for all. Hello, I'm Diane Trees. With me now is Senator Geraldine Thompson and Mr. Art McClendon. Senator Thompson was first elected to the state legislature in 2006 and has represented the 12th district in the state Senate since 2012. Before entering politics, she spent more than 2 decades working in higher education. Art McClendon served as the second president of the initial City of Orlando's MLK Commission. Senator, welcome to the show. Mr. McClendon, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I know that it's important to celebrate Martin Luther King Day. For both of you, it has meaning. Senator, can you tell us, can you share what it means to you and how it's influenced the person you are today?
Well, I think that Dr. King really opened doors for all of us. Commissioner McClendon and I and so many other people are where we are because of the work of Dr. King. He looked at a situation where things were unequal, laws were unjust, they were unfair, and he stepped forward to address those things. So I think that in many instances, Dr. King changed America and made it more inclusive and celebrated the diversity that we find in our country.
Mr. McClendon, it had a long history and meaning to you. Can you share a little bit about things?
Yes, I agree with Senator Thompson. Going way back in my lifetime, it has meant so much. In my first familiarization of civil rights movement, the Jim Crow era, my knowledge of Dr. King, and going forward from that day to my participation on the commission and other activities, I know that he participated in a lot of events that kind of pursued racial equality for Black Americans and some of the fights and battles that he had in order to make that happen. I think the kind of person that made me is to make sure that I participate in activities and things like that to try to make sure that I work toward the same kind of things that Dr. King pursued on a much broader scale.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that Dr. King's legacy lives on? And I mean that more than just the day that we celebrate in January once a year. Do you think that the vibrancy of what he preached is there for us?
Well, Dr. King talked about a day when Black people, white people, people of different faiths, people of different backgrounds would come together at the table of brotherhood. And I think in terms of the table of brotherhood, we could be talking about our legislatures, which all over the country now have African American representation. We could be talking about our schools, where students from different backgrounds, different racial lines come together. And so brotherhood could also be talking about our economy and having people given an opportunity rather than being locked out because of the color of their skin. So that's the legacy of Dr. King, that we are now included rather than excluded because of our race, our gender, or our disability, those kinds of things.
Senator Thompson, I know that you're a history buff. And how would you describe the Central Florida area? How has it changed today for the African American community as to what it was some 50 years ago when Dr. King was alive?
Well, today people can live wherever they can afford to live. 50 years ago, people would have been prescribed in terms of being restricted to live in a particular place. We still have ethnically identifiable communities, but that's by choice, where
That's by
people
choice,
want, where
correct.
they want to stay, rather than where the law says that they have to stay. We also have schools where students come from different racial backgrounds, different religions, different customs, and different traditions, and they're all there together interacting and being a part of the American experience rather than being segregated.
When you took in as the second president, did you have a strategy in mind or some goals? I mean, this was brand new, and I know that it was, as you said, there was some effort and work to get Martin Luther King Day acknowledged as a national holiday. How'd you do there?
I think we had maybe 12, 15 persons on the committee. And the outreach strategy was to let's try to outreach schools and civic and community organizations, boys and girls clubs and things like that, to get some of the youthful generation to participate more in the parade. I mean, we went from a 50 or 60 entity parade to well over 100 entities that included, expanded community-wide to get everybody involved. So the strategy there was, let's outreach, since we have the muscle of the city of Orlando now behind us, and we can advertise and promote the event through them, then let's try to reach everybody as far as good.
Senator, how has celebrating Martin Luther King Day, how has that expanded from a parade, which was, again, a wonderful thing to bring the community together, and a prayer breakfast? There's a lot more going on. How has that expanded? Are you pleased to see what's happening?
I'm pleased to see people celebrate in so many different ways. The parade is certainly one way to celebrate. We also have oratorical contests. We have young people who write essays. We have the prayer breakfast that you mentioned, where we have generally a nationally known speaker. We recognize Arthur Pappy Kennedy, who was the first African American on the city council. So it's an educational opportunity where people get involved, people learn in different ways, and so I am glad to see that kind of variety.
Mr. McClendon, when you first started out then, was it a challenge to get people engaged and involved in the commission and to convey what you were hoping to do?
It was a challenge. We, like I said, initially we took a 2 or 3 pronged approach to getting youth, and probably under 30, we had probably 5 or 6 of the commissioners who were under 30 years old, and they had their own segment of the population that they wanted to reach out to. Boys and girls clubs and other organizations like that got them to participate and be a part of the parade, drum corps and things like that. And that stimulated interest there. Some of the other end of the older generation, we still tried to have things that they were interested in, such as speech contests, or we had choruses at various churches that performed. So that part of it wasn't really as much of a challenge as we thought it would be, because of the number of people on the commission who reached out to the community.
You both have different perspectives of the last 30 years and of the commission. Senator, how have you seen the growth of the commission? I know you mentioned that you are pleased with the expansion. What about the growth into the areas?
Well, I served on the commission, and I think we have a much more diverse membership on the commission now, and I think that we're focused really on Dr. King's life and his legacy more. I think when people think of Dr. King, they think about his work in Alabama, his work in Georgia, his work in Mississippi. They don't think about his work in Florida, and he spent a lot of time in St. Augustine. In fact, we know he was arrested in Birmingham and wrote a letter from the Birmingham jail, but he wrote a letter from the St. Augustine jail. So we have not really highlighted the history of Dr. King in Florida, and we've not highlighted African American history and our civil rights history to the extent that we should. And so the expansion means that more people, just as Dr. King involved the Jewish faith, and he had individuals from the white community, he had poor people, he had religious people. That's what the commission has become. And I think the more we know about Dr. King's contributions, the more impact that it has in terms of the progress that we've made.
Right, right. Mr. McClendon, it must be fascinating for you to have been in the very, very beginnings of this and to see what's happened now. What's the most significant change that you see that's come about through the commission?
I think probably the outreach of involvement of getting people from so many segments of the community to participate. You know, at one time it was kind of small and localized, and we used to go in the inner city. We had maybe 2 or 3 blocks that we did back in 1984, 85, 86 time frame. And we kept expanding, and now we can put the parade down Orange Avenue.
It's
Many years
everywhere.
ago, black people couldn't go down Orange Avenue. Now we have a parade honoring Dr. Martin Luther King going down Orange Avenue. So I think the outreach from the commission has been probably one of the most visible assets that I see.
More of a community thing now. Thank you both so much for being here and talking about Dr. King.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on the celebration of the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Stay with us. We'll be right back. With us now is Marcia Hope Goodwin, Director of the Office of Community Affairs and Human Relations for the City of Orlando, and Brandy Hand, an attorney with Hand & Chapman, who is chairman of this year's City of Orlando Mayor's MLK Commission. Brandy and Marcia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Brandy, can you tell us what is the Mayor's MLK Commission? What's the purpose?
The commission is a 24-person group appointed by the mayor each year from the public, private, and not-for-profit sector. Our mission is to strengthen our community through the promotion of Dr. King's legacy of equality, justice, peace, respect, and inclusion for all.
You must work with an awful lot of volunteers along with the 24 that were appointed. Is that correct?
We do.
Yes, yes. Marcia, let me ask you, with celebrating Martin Luther King, the day, it also celebrates other purposes, historical events that have occurred. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it does. I mean, when you think about our local history and how we have grown and changed and become so inclusive in Orlando, you reflect on some of the things that have happened that really were motivated and I think probably inspired by Dr. King. The creation of our MLK Commission, which started 30 years ago. We were one of the first cities in Florida to begin celebrating the holiday with a commission appointed by the mayor and special events the first year that they started the holiday in the nation. So I think that historic events led us to that. We knew that the goals and the legacy of Dr. King, inclusion, fairness, justice, peace, those are things that our community values.
It goes hand in hand then with things. You mentioned this is the 30th anniversary for the Mayor's MLK Commission. How important is it to have a Mayor's Commission to do these celebrations? And especially here in Orlando, I didn't realize we were one of the first in the nation to have that.
Yes. Well, Mayor Dyer and our City Council think it's extremely important, and at least 2 mayors prior, because it started under Mayor Bill Frederick and then was carried on by Mayor Glenda Hood. So our mayors have believed that this is a part of what Orlando is. And if you think about our vision and mission for our city, inclusion and diversity are right there in the statements. So the Mayor's Martin Luther King Commission is really a collection of amazing citizens like Brandy who give more hours than most people realize to make sure that our citizens have a celebration that really honors everyone in the community and also lets everyone understand what Dr. King did and how he helped change this nation for the better.
Do other cities have commissions like this? Are we, I know we have one that's very special, but do other cities have the commissions? Do you know?
They do. They do. And they are similar to ours. They're usually a part of a government, a city government, that will help promote events. We think we stand out because we are charged by the mayor each year to really reach out to more segments of the population to include in the celebration.
And that's another question that I wanted to ask you. Both of you have been involved with the leadership positions in this for a number of years. How have you seen the commission change and obviously grow? And that's one of the charges that you have.
It is. I have been privileged to serve on the commission for several years, and I have seen it grow. A great example is the parade, the MLK parade, which is traditionally on the Saturday of the holiday weekend.
Yes.
Started as a neighborhood parade through the Paramore neighborhood. We now take it right through downtown Orlando. It's to show that this is a community celebration. It is not a neighborhood or a segment of our population celebration. We have seen every event grow in size, not only in size, but as well as who attends the events, from little ones to 90s.
Well, with Dr. King's legacy, it applies to so many different groups of people and situations. So even though that makes sense, that's not always translated through. It's good to hear that.
Yes.
The parade, and as you mentioned, and the breakfast, the Arthur Pappy Kennedy prayer breakfast, those have always been signature events, I think. But there are a slew of other things going on. Can you tell us a little bit more about the community activities that you have?
I'd be glad to. We have been blessed since the beginning of the commission and the celebration officially in Orlando to have a lot of events that are annual events. The Candlelight Vigil and March from City Hall is a standard event where we gather as a community and walk by candlelight together.
Where? Down Orange Avenue?
Through Orange Avenue
Down.
to a downtown church. It rotates from year to year for an interfaith service, and that's conducted by the Interfaith Council of Central Florida. The Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, which was Dr. King's fraternity, sponsors an annual scholarship luncheon where they also give, in addition to the scholarships, they give drum major awards for community leadership. The Negro Spiritual Foundation sponsors an annual concert called the City of Hope that features song, dance, and other music. This year we are privileged to celebrate Plant Seedlings for Civil Rights. Plant Seedlings for Civil Rights began as a community service project on the King holiday because the commission truly felt Dr. King's call to community service. This year, we are very excited that that celebration of community service is going to take place in each one of the city's 6 districts. We are hoping for over 1,000 people to come out on the King holiday to answer Dr. King's call to community service.
So that's the initial time, is this celebration coming up?
Correct. It will be
Cool.
the first time that we've done it for all 6 districts.
Yes.
And then the other event the commission has created this year in recognition of the 30th anniversary is called The Dream, a gospel concert. And that will be free to the public, of course.
And you, as the commission, coordinate these activities.
We do.
Yes,
Very.
and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of people involved. I think the beauty of this commission is the number and really scope of people that they engage. And they engage them by giving them opportunities to create something that honors and recognizes Dr. King and things that are inspired by his vision and his mission. So we've seen so much, as Brandy mentioned, with the service projects. Each year they're getting bigger and better and people are wanting to come. We've had a couple of years where we had more people wanting to volunteer than we had jobs for them to do in terms of volunteerism.
That's a good thing.
So it's a good thing to have, but we feel we'll be covered this year with all of our city commissioners getting involved and having projects in their district. And Mayor Dyer kind of has the opportunity to go and support many of them on the day of service, which is the actual holiday on the 18th.
Marcia, how has perception changed? I think this started out to be predominantly a celebration that the African American community was more interested in, perhaps, sadly, but it has changed, it seems, to be more of a community type celebration. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think that yes, these founders, the individuals who actually promoted and got Congress to agree to the holiday, were definitely more African American members of the community who believed in, and many of them had marched with and lived in and family members died with Dr. King. So that for sure. I think that initially you're right, but now it's really a community celebration. It is a celebration of the values that we all hold dear. These are things that I think everybody wants for themselves and their families. It's the golden rule. It's basically treating others as you would have them treat you, and it's also making sure that you're fair and just and peaceful in that communication. So we find that nowadays more than ever, the whole community sees the relevance of this with all that's happening in the national headlines and
turmoil
things,
that we
the
have.
turmoil that we have, that we have to be people that really not only respect each other, but also don't discriminate.
It's very good to hear.
It is.
Brandy, I know that you do some programs to engage middle school and high school students with the activities, but I also understand that you're working to educate them as well with the legacy of Dr. King. Is that one of the things that you're doing now?
It is. We have the Mayor's Youth Humanitarian Program, and each middle and high school student, one is selected from each middle and high school in Orange County to be a Mayor's Youth Humanitarian. And they are selected by their principal or guidance counselor because they have demonstrated the ideals of Dr. King. It is an award that is given strictly about content of their character. It has nothing to do with their grades. Most of the students do have excellent grades. All of the students do outstanding community service, which of course is one of Dr. King's tenets. The students are loved on by us, nurtured by us. We invite them to all of our events. They go to the events with us.
They must be thrilled.
They are absolutely thrilled. We take them to a Magic game where the Orlando Magic honors them on the center court at halftime. All their names are on the Jumbotron,
Very
which
important.
is a
Yeah, that's
great thing. We also, so at each event, we talk to them about the importance of what this event is doing to celebrate Dr. King's legacy. In addition, at the end, we have an award service where they are presented to the community. Mayor Dyer is there, their families are there, school personnel are there, and they are all presented with a book on Dr. King. They're given a gift certificate, which of course they love, and they also get to hear from a motivational speaker. And we've had people such as Rich DeVos, who fell in love with the program and spoke to the children one year.
I know that you do a fantastic job with an enormous task. Is there anything else, another direction that you would like to see the committee take on for this? Is it possible that there's more?
There's always more. There's always more to be done. There's always more, there are more ways to include every segment of the community. I think this year, going from one district for Community Service Day
Right.
to 6 is going to be huge.
Yes.
We are so excited about the potential of letting people volunteer in their own communities. Instead of coming downtown or coming to wherever the project is that year, they only have to go down the street. So we are really thrilled that we're answering Dr. King's call to community service that he raised in his Drum Major Instinct speech that everybody knows about. Everybody can be great because everybody can serve.
Definitely. And I agree with Brandy. I think our city commissioners are always there. They are involved in the parade. They come to many of the events. But this year they're taking on a different role. They're actually hosting a service project in their district. And I think that means a lot because that means that they are going to be even more engaged than they have been in the past. And it's important because as our elected leaders, there are a lot of people who are looking to them, and they are really guiding and helping people understand why this is important.
Thank you both, and thank you for the time that both of you give to this. It's so very important. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Diane.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us on Metro Center Outlook. Until next time, I'm Diane Trees.